Welcome to Tales from the Golden Imp. I am Joe Craig, the Impish Skald. The last time we followed the group to find not only the people of Malatin, but the people from Chunda as well. However, that is when Prin pulled the rug out from beneath their feet, which cost Maris his life. In the end, the Skald escaped with a horde of goblins from the nest with very few losses on the side of the heroes. Now we find the people of Malatin and the people of Chunda part ways with a little less bad blood between them. What's next for our heroes? Let's find out in this episode of the Calmbringer Cycle. Welcome to Tales from the Golden Imp. Episode 6, Echoes of the Lost. Morris opened his eyes, still reaching for that knife that was not there. Quickly, he realized that things were not as they were. Beneath him was soft grass, cold but soft. The lighting was all wrong as well, and the sky was like dusk without a sun present, but the color was off, dull. He was used to the cold, but this was a different cold. Not that gnawing or biting cold, but something worse. Morris was cold in his core in a way that he had never experienced. He blinked and began to pull himself up off the ground. Looking around, had he survived in some way? Was he still alive? "No, your story is complete," came a deep, booming voice. Morris jerked around again, reaching for that knife that should have been on his side. Then he remembered that knife was in his shoulder. Well, it was supposed to be in his shoulder. "Where am I?" Morris asked, fearing that he knew the answer already. Fearing it greater when his eyes fell on the giant form that stood just behind him with what looked to be a mammoth skull over his face. The fine green robes that he wore seemed so out of place. The giant stood just shy of 20 feet in height, more than twice Maris's height. "You have passed on, and now in my embrace. Now it is time for me to decide where your soul will continue upon." Speaking slowly and opening his arms to greet Maris to his home. "Welcome, Morris Darkscale, to oblivion. Now I weigh your soul." The blue-skinned giant turned towards the building that was behind them. The building looked as if it was made of polished bone, slightly yellowed from the age of the structure. The doors were open and could not be seen on approach. Maris rose and followed the hulking form before him. As they walked up the wide stairs to the deck of the structure, another figure wearing a mask of bone held a large book in her hands. She stood in green robes of silk, the finest silk from Alistan. The Alistinian silk was a silk from a frostworm that turns into the blue scorpion fly. Harvesting the silk is a very dangerous prospect, but extremely profitable. Hard winters had Maris contemplating that journey to try his hand at acquiring the silk. If only he knew how to process it himself, he believed he could have gotten out of the whole system. The silk was strong enough to serve as sails on a ship, so it couldn't be that hard to weave. The woman presented the book with reverence to Necropis. "My lord, this is the book for Maris Darkscale, fourth of his name, completed now that his earthly cairn has been built and his body has been laid to rest. His friends lack the ability to raise his body, so his story is at the conclusion. No trials for the soul is required, my lord." She finished the proclamation with a bow, presenting the book with both her hands, raising it above her bowing form. "Thank you, Laura. Laura has watched over your life and recorded just how hard you work, just how hard you hone your crafts. There is great debate over your soul and which place you should rest in, which realm you should call home for the rest of oblivion. You have garnered the attention of Belden, Lord of the Forge and Craftsmanship, as well as Addia the Green. I personally feel that you will find the end most pleasing with Addia. Though I could see a case to find Haldorn a good fit. You are not overly religious, but respected the gods. It is ultimately my decision, but I respect your wishes. Do you have a preference? The weight of the situation was finally hitting Maris. He was dead. That woman had killed him with her teeth. He'd always mused that he would find his end by the jaws of a beast, but never imagined that beast would be in a human, if you could call the Skald a human. So, my story has concluded. This is my end. Yes. And if it pleases you, you shall be remembered as a hero who sacrificed himself for many others. They will remember you fondly. Many stories will be told because of your actions and sacrifices. Necropis was flipping through the book, skimming the pages to refresh his memory of the life that Morris had led. Haldorn is one that I would not expect to be among this list. I hunt the beast that he trains. I wouldn't think that I would be welcome in his realm. Morris, still somewhat in shock from the whole situation, thinking to himself, how is it that I should choose how to spend the rest of Oblivion? Addia made the most sense to him. He smiled to himself, knowing that his work with hides had garnered the attention of Belden. But it was a decision that had to be made. To him, Addia was the only choice. He would be able to hunt in her forest and glades. He could live out the rest of his days, if days were what they could be called. As soon as that thought crossed his mind, Necropis closed the book and nodded. It has been decided, then. Yes, I shall rest with Addia the Green. But first, can I ask a question? Of course you can. You have all of Oblivion. You may rest with me for a while if you so choose, Necropis responded. Is Durin alive? Did we manage to save him? His story has not yet been concluded, Morris. You managed to make a way to allow Durin to be saved for now. There are many more interesting stories to be told about Durin of Malatin. You have done well, Morris. Rest easy knowing that he was among those that were saved. Curiosity got the better of Morris. He had to see what was inside the building of bone. To his surprise, it was a library. A massive library at that. In the center of the main chamber were thousands of scribes with death's head masks writing. Many of them with books laying before them. Each book is a record of a life. Every life has a story that should be told. These are speakers of the dead that have passed on to record the lives of those still living. Time moves slowly here, so we are able to record multiple lives with each person. Laura recorded your life. She watched over you always. I fed her your thoughts and dreams. Only through knowing you, in the core of your being, can I ensure that you will not be tortured in oblivion. Your rest should be one of peace, if you so choose. There are those that find peace in war, and there are homes for those people as well. But you are not one such being. You worked so hard in life to live at peace, so you have earned the peace that is to come. Addia awaits you, Morris Darkscale, fourth of your name. With that, Necropis led Morris to standing stones that the library seemed to be built around. The giant placed a hand on the stones, and the center began to glow. A portal opened up within the stone, first glowing a brilliant green before things materialized. A portal had opened. Standing on the other side was two figures. One of an elfin woman with blonde hair and green eyes. She was dressed in a dress of leaves and flowers. And the second was far more beautiful to Morris's eyes. It was a halfling woman, a little rotund with a face that would bring peace to any troubled waters. It was Kelna, his childhood love that had passed far too young. Kelna had gotten sick when they were both young. Morris had loved her and loved no other since. He made her leather armor while she lay on her deathbed with a fever that would not go away. Even the priest could not cure this disease that she had contracted. It had left Morris heartbroken. Yet, she was here waiting for him. With a tear, he crossed over into the realm of Addia the Green, picking up Klena with a powerful embrace. Gods, how I've missed you. These were the last words recorded in the book that was Morris Darkscale, fourth of his name. Back in Malatin, Lord Ethan Eldos had his list of the missing and the dead. They had lost lives, but nowhere near as many as they would have if it were not for Jaina, Regos, Meg, Dandros, and of course Morris. They had made an earthly cairn for him in the wilds on their way back to Malatin. It was a loss that carried with it great impacts. His sacrifice was one that would be remembered, and the Lord Eldos would ensure that would be the case. Of the group, only Dandros came back with them. He would be the guest of honor for tonight's feast, but that was for tonight. Now, they needed to formulate the reports for the Council of Eddias. These reports were dark and heavy. After 300 years, the Skald had returned, with promises that Callisto was returning as well. There was also an army of goblins that were on an old road beneath the mountains. They had to find out where that road went, though most of these old roads led to one place, and that was Durg. The war council that was gathered around the maps of Eddias consisted of Lord Ethan Eldos, Captain Gillard Tones from the Great Falls Forest, High Priest Dole Karish, and Justicar Parthis Morsh. They were talking to Dandros to record all the details they could gather from him. Thank you, Dandros. This information will be invaluable to the Council of Eddias, but we may have more to ask of you. For now, go, rest. You have earned it. You will be at a place of honor tonight. You will represent the group as a whole. I look forward to breaking bread with you, Lord Ethan Eldos said with reverence. It is my pleasure, Lord Eldos. If you need me, I'll be in the Golden Imp. I need a drink after all this. With a bow, the dwarf stepped back a couple of steps before turning and leaving the chamber to allow the war minds to continue their council. The collective lay looking over some of the older maps that they had at their disposal. How they longed for some of the maps that went up in flames during the initial raid. Alas, that would not be the case. They had to use what they had available to them now. The city's best cartographer had died during the raid, and one of the best survivalists the city had known had died during the rescue attempt afterwards. Lord Ethan Eldos, Captain Gillard Tones, High Priest Dole Karish, and Justicar Parthis Morsh had been looking over the maps for any that held a reference to the old roads, and they had finally found one. The road that they were looking for, in fact, did lead to Durg. Were the goblins heading there? They would have been heading in the right direction, but those tunnels could go anywhere these days. Dirk would need to be warned anyway, just to be on the safe side. They had all agreed on that fact. Additionally, the threat from the Skald would have to be taken before the Council of Eddius before a military force could be officially formed. With hope, they would be early in this whole thing and would have time to train those that would enlist. So the calm was broken after 300 years. Lord Eldos thought to himself that it was such a damn time to be a part of. He could only imagine what his predecessors could have gone through with generations under the threat of Callisto. The group from Feldus were ready to fly back home and prepare for one more war in their long lives. But they were waiting for a dignitary from the Throne of Bone in Chunda. What's worse are the sightings of dragon activities around the Dragon's Maw that had everyone on high alert. With the Skald active, that is all they needed was a hungry dragon for her to take control over. The sight was not unseen, just poor timing for the beast to wake up hungry. The mammoth population had not moved into the mountains yet. This dragon's timing was off. Mammoths were large enough to sate the beast, if only it had waited another couple of weeks. Lord Eldos. Ethan. Morsh called to bring Ethan back to the present. The letters you received from Chunda, have they been helpful? What news do we have from them? Lord Olan Durf is heading here personally to meet with us. He should be arriving within the hour. He met with his lost on the road and sent word that he was thankful for the actions of our overzealous lot that performed that rescue mission. I've got Vurin preparing him a drink for when he arrives, along with us some food. I have a feeling this will be a long meeting. I just hope we can keep it focused on the problems at hand and not dwell on the problems we've had. The door opened to the longhouse. Oh, someone talking about me again. The straw-haired Vurin had entered with a platter of cheese and bread, but Baily followed her with a pot of Nemeless soup. They set the platter on an empty table and hung the pot over the hearth, close enough to the fire to keep it warm, but not so close that it would burn, as long as it was stirred regularly. Now, don't you all let my soup burn. If I hear one word from Olan that had a scorched taste to it, you'll have me to deal with. Everyone understood? With a chuckle, Morsh responded, Yes, ma'am. We rightly understand and don't want any more trouble than we already have on our hands. You have my word that we will keep that soup stirred. And thank you very much for the delivery service. It is much appreciated. Well, think nothing of it. Happy to help, and you know that. Vurin responded, and Baily gave his thanks, and the two of them exited the longhouse. Jaina sat, working the blue leather that had been given to her by Morris. As she did so, she wept a bit for her lost friend. She sat in the quiet room, a room in the frozen tankard, where the Lord of Chunda, Olan Durf, had set them up with rooms. She hated crying, but she knew that all needed to do it. It always made her feel so weak. But she was not going to let this gift go to waste. She would work it as instructed until she got it to a smith to work it into a battle dress for her. She would wear a dress made out of the stuff, but it would be one that fit her, and not some imposter. It wasn't that Jaina was opposed to dresses, she was just opposed to dresses being on her. With her bone structure and body type, they just looked out of place. It was as if someone were standing in someone else's skin and not her own. She kept her hair short, for practical reasons, and it certainly didn't help to have short stubble paired with something that flowed. You needed a proper haircut for something like that. Jaina always thought her father was being cute when he would compare her to her mother. Knowing that it was him, in fact, that she looked like. Her breastplate and tassel would allow for a battle dress to be worn with it. People wore such combinations. And she heard that it was quite liberating from old man Thomason. Thomason was an odd man to say the least, wearing a kilt even on the coldest of days. Well, days when he wasn't all dressed up in his armor. She herself had worn a kilt on a regular basis, but a dress? Huh, no, she couldn't bring herself to do it. She had tried for someone before, and it was just a bad idea. A kilt she could do, a dress, never again. To disrupt her revelry, a knock came at the door. "Jaina, darling, I've got some dinner. You never came down for it and the kitchen is closing soon. Can I come in?" The voice of Meg came across soft and caring. "Yeah, sorry, just lost track of time tending to my equipment," lied Jaina, composing herself. "The door's open, come on in." As Meg entered, Jaina was putting away the leather that she'd been working, now realizing that the sun had been setting when she had started, and now the moons were at full blaze in the sky. Hours had truly passed. "Here you are, Jaina. I got you a mug of cider, and this pork potato soup that looks like it's been eaten once already. But it's pretty good." Mag sat on the corner of the bed after handing her a bowl of stew. Jaina started eating and looked composed. And then Meg followed up. "How are you holding up? You were close to Maris, I could tell. He seemed a great lad. You all were courting, were you?" With a laugh that sent some of the neck bones and potatoes across the room, Jaina nearly choking. "Oh, gods, no. No, we were friends, that would all. But to see him like that, it hurts all the same, but thank you for the laugh." "What's so funny about that?" Meg asked, genuinely confused at the laughter. Let's just say Maris and I had similar tastes when it came to relationships. I liked mine a little taller, but still short all the same. We would have come closer to fighting over someone long before we'd find ourselves in each other's bedchambers. What about you and Regos? Anything there?" "Oh, he wishes, but I think he's not the picky type when it comes to bedding down. Settling down might be a little rough for that one. I think he has to get over himself before there'd be room for a lover in his life. No, we met on the road heading into Malatin on calming day. Him helping out the people of Malatin is still a shock to me, honestly. I think he may have a good heart, but he tries to hide it behind a book and a pipe." "Fair enough, and this is really good. Thank you for getting me some before it was all gone. And you mean to tell me you've never had neck bones and potatoes?" Jaina looking over her next spoonful. "Neck bones? I thought as much. But out here I assume a roast is a roast." Meg adjusted the dress she was wearing. Even with her shorter hair, she pulled off the dress quite nice. The dress was earthly tones that contrasted her skin quite well. The browns were light, and the touches of orange in it made it look quite festive. "And when you're done being alone, we'll be down in the Commonroom. Regos has ordered a cask of ale, and I'll be damned if I let him drink it all on his own." "All right, I'll be down as soon as I finish this off. You won't have to suffer him and his ego alone. Like you, I think there's a good man hiding beneath that facade. Did you see him work with that kid on his letters? That's not something a self-centered, egocentric person would do. Well, either way, have fun. I'll see you in a bit." As Meg was leaving, Jaina finished putting away the cerulean leather. A thought came to her. Something was missing from Maris's body. And this thought enraged her. His pouch of goblin bones were missing. Best case were that they were lost in the cave. But worst case? Oh, Worst case would someone had took them from him. They were his most prized possession and should have been buried with him. If she finds them, Jaina swore that she would return them to him. Down in the common room, Regos was enjoying a smoke and reading a book. Or was trying to. His mind was distracted. The events of the past 2 days had him reeling. The implication of such events was just too big. Thinking back to that traveler that pointed him in the direction of Malatin, and then this? It was more than coincidence, far more. Not only that, but run into another person with a similar story. No, there was no chance in that happening. That was something else. This smelled of divine intervention. Why couldn't the gods just leave him be? Had they not done enough damage to his plans? Where were they when he was being expelled? Or was this part of their plan too? Regos was working himself up again. After a long draw of his pipe, he focused again. The facts were there in front of him, but had to be put together. He was missing a few variables. Meg held a few of those variables, but what would it take to get her to reveal them? How much of himself did he have to reveal to get a solid description of the traveler that pointed her to Malatin? What set her feet to this world? She was so guarded about her past. What did he expect from a world-weary woman? To reveal her darkest secrets to him after only a few days? No, that was ridiculous and he knew it. Closing the book, he gave up pretending to read. It was a garbage book anyway. He really didn't care if Lucy decided between the Marquis or the Viscount. It didn't even have accurate historical touch points to take information in from. Just because the book is old doesn't mean it's useful information now, is it? It wasn't worth the silver he paid for the thing. But that wasn't the point. Folk interested in reading in this part of the world was tough to come by, so finding a book collector of any kind in Chunda was a pure feat of the gods. He would go back to this Kadavi. Yes, Kadavi, that was it. Tomorrow to see if there was something more of his tastes in the collection. Historical romance was not his cup of tea. Though, the tea was good from time to time with these books. Regos' mother would be proud of him for learning one lesson. There are many ways to manipulate a throne, and beautiful throbbing bits was certainly one of them. People that sit on a throne are just the same in many ways. For all the talk, Regos knew that most of it was just posturing to gather information. Wouldn't Mother be proud? Another puff of the pipe and focus on the here and now. This figure that had approached him was wearing robes comfortably, as if he had worn them for years. He wasn't dressed as a mage, but Regos had him pegged for a wizard right off the bat. He certainly had the arcane spark about him. What was he doing on the Pyro's call anyway? Everything about the shipride was wrong. He more than half expected to be robbed at sea by the crew when he placed his feet upon the deck of the ship. Yet, it was the ship. The Pyro's call was the ship that would lead him to the future. The oracles had stated that one as fact. All their cryptic messages, that one was clear. It had cost him much to get his audience with the oracles. But there it was. Find passage to port last call, and board the Pyro's call. It will lead you to your destiny. It had set his feet upon this path. Now were they leading them? Interesting. Them, not him. Were they part of it too, then? Meg had rejoined him at some point. What is this? Regos in a state of contemplation? I wouldn't have thought it possible. Meg chided. He enjoyed that banter. She wasn't a skirt to chase, but she certainly was an interesting woman. With a signature smirk, Regos responded, "The night is young. There is much you may learn about me yet. So, something that's been picking at me. This traveling advisor that you came across. Could you tell me what he looked like?" Olan rode into Malatin upon his dire wolf. The beast had served him well from a pup. He needed a good friend in this town. Oh, the nice people of Malatin wouldn't hurt him. But you couldn't trust a Malatinian as far as you could throw him. Granted, with his might, he could throw on a distance. But the blood was foul between the people of Chunda and Malatin. Malatin would leave them in the cold the first chance they got, unless things really were that dire. And the way the goblins have been acting the past few months, he had worried that he could trust a Malatinian at this point. Riding up to the longhouse, he tied off Minx next to the horses saddled there. Seemed this wouldn't be a private meeting with old Lord Eldos. He was going to have his lapdogs with him. The red and white bearded Olan prepared himself for a conflict to come, checking to make sure his warhammer was on his belt and his furs were situated in a way that he had a full range of motion. He considered donning the helm, but thought that would push things a bit too far. For now, he would leave it here and let his curly red hair flow. Well, one of it was still red. Getting old was a foul experience. With a decisive knock at the door, Olan entered the longhouse and was greeted by the smell of food. Maybe things were more dire than he expected. Lord Eldos greeted Olan with a nod and waved him to join the group at the table. "Lord Durf, thank you for coming. I was hoping that we could compare notes to see if you had any insight in this particular tunnel." The jerk hit him with his weakness. Old maps, Olan thought to himself. Before he could catch himself, he was poring over the map to get a sense of direction. Aye, I see old road system to Durg, built before the Tyrant took power. The Tyrant is the reason that it's not in use anymore. Too many damn dead things on it. It's the reason we closed our entrance to the damned thing. One way or another, the road leads to Durg, but what of it? What's the importance of these old roads? Chunda had been the seat of power in the region at that time. Malatin was a simple trading post. The old tyrant cost Chunda a lot, and the wounds were still scabbed over and not yet healed. Olan figured at this point they would just keep getting infected and never heal. The goblins took these roads when they abandoned the Warren. We've been digging in trying to figure out why. We knew they went to Durg as well, but could there be other places that were in danger? Responded Morsh. To be honest with you, any major settlement on the olden days would have been a potential target. But if that woman was the Skald like the lads had been saying, her target would be Durg. They've grown very soft over the years, and if I were an aging warlord, I'd hit him with a surprise even before the numbers were on my side. How many of those thick-skinned worms did she have? Had to have a good number if she managed to work Dolan to death, and still wasn't done to have to take your smith too. Therein lies one of our problems. We estimated the Warren was home to about 300 to 500 goblins. But the numbers estimated in the main chamber of that place was greater than that. Malatin was hit by what we estimate to be 300 or so goblins. So that would be 300 fighting goblins. The population would have to be around 1,000 to say the least. Lord Eldos cut in before Morsh could respond this time. He had to build rapport with Olan, and couldn't do that if he wasn't doing some of the talking. How about you? How'd they hit you all? Your defenses are still far superior than ours here in Malatin. Aye, we were hitting the cover of night like you were. We were also hit with what we estimated to be close to 500 fighting beasts, with around a dozen or so trolls. The trolls opened up our front gate after the archers eliminated the gate guards. We keep our gates closed at night so the dead don't just waltz right in on us. From there, things went about the same, stealing over, killing, and abducting key figures. It was like they had scouted the city pretty extensively. They knew where they were going, and how they were going to hit it, and exactly how they were going to get out with it. It was all too well organized for goblin snot that normally deal with. So isolated as we are, we have drawn the ire from afar more than the soft underbelly here, Olan continued. Once the attack was known, we had our breeches on and the goblins scattered. They weren't here for fighting, so some of those numbers could have been non-fighting age goblins. Still though, that number would have to have a larger warren than 1,000 to support it. You figure a third of the population of a warren to be fighting stock. So we call it 400, that would put that warren at 1,200. A warren of that size hadn't been heard of in this age. Not since the calm. So you didn't drag me down here to just talk about goblin breeding sizes. What's at the heart of the request, old man? With a smile, Ethan relented. Well, two things. First, to hear about how you got hit and the tactics used, which I'd like to hear in greater detail. Second, I need that brain of yours to figure out where we need to signal the alarm. We have a large warren of goblins acting and planning things in a very particular way. You had to live in the trenches far more than I. I need to lean on your experience here. But enough of that. The soup's starting to get cold if we don't eat it. How about we break bread before we get into the weeds on all this? Olan laughed at that. Aye, we can do that. Soup smells divine. So much better than the goat I've been living off so my people could have the beef before it goes bad. You ain't got no wizard hiding about around here that could fix a cold cellar, do you? Ethan was pouring a bowl of soup for Olan when he responded. No, I was hoping one would join the final caravans, but once word gets out, I fear we have seen the last of the caravans until spring comes again. Winter's going to be long this year, no matter how short it is. Taking the first bites of Nephil's soup. Aye, I agree on that one. It's going to be a long one this year for sure. Hopefully, it will get here before the meat reserves go foul, so we can get some trading done this winter. Meat for grains? Perhaps that will thaw relationships between our people. A good loaf of bread in the heart of winter sounds like a good plan. He could be the politician as well. And the Chundan reserves of grain was something that was completely lost in the raid. Not that he would let good old Ethan know that much. He'd want a steak for enough grain for a loaf of bread if he knew that. The group dug into the soup, shared the bread and the cheese. They even had a flagon of ale from the imp apiece. Conversations were good, if a little frosty. Relationship between the cities were bad. But at a time like this, they needed each other, and no two men understood that more than Ethan Eldos and Olan Durf. If the two cities were to survive this winter, they would need each other. Goblin horde aside, it was going to be a long winter to recover from the losses they had taken, let alone if they needed to go to war on top of that. They talked through the meal, discussing how the cities were hit, what was taken, and just how bad things were going to cripple the mining for both cities. With the loss of tools, a smith, and a whole season's worth of blasting stones, each. More than winter was going to be rough. Blasting stones were enchanted stones shaped like a round arrowhead that they could fire from a crossbow to help blast open new passages in the mountains. Far more dependable than the sticks of TNT that they would have to rely on now. More output, plus it was shaped and controlled a lot better. The fact that two cities' entire stock of blasting stones were taken was troubling and pointed to the old roads getting cleared up in a hurry. By the end of the conversation, it was decided that the city of Durg was certainly the target, and likely the next target. If the Skald could convince the Goblin Warrens to consolidate on their way, their numbers would be great to say the least. If Durg was caught off guard, it would be devastating to the whole kingdom of Edius. Durg was a city that most innovations came from. Most weapons during war came from there. Durg was the reason the Battle of Edius ended the way it did. Sure, Edius City had fallen, but the numbers of the lost were so great that Callisto had to pull his forces back. Linsid was badly wounded in the battle, from the reports some say gravely. Skald had been killed, and the control of the beast had been stressed to the point that the keepers couldn't keep all of them under control. After a few dragons left the battle, the tides of war turned. Callisto's castle had been pulled away from the site, and rumors that it had fallen into the sea not 3 days later. Granted, all of this cost the heroes of the calm, but it brought them the calm itself, and for 300 years it had been calm. Now the Skald returns. How could one come from having their head being cut off and then devoured by a silver dragon that she rode into the battle? That dragon was the first to shake off the shackles of control, and it made sure the Skald couldn't be revived easily. You can't regrow a head with magic. An arm was a doable thing, but you had to have the matter there to replace it. Be it clay, stone, flesh. You had to have an arm to revive. Heads, no, that couldn't be done. That dragon had made sure that Skald wouldn't come back. Remembering that, Olan brought up a fine point. So, the silver dragons that live up around the mall, do you think they can be trusted to fight with us against this threat? Or at least their little fighting order that they have? What fighting order? I've not heard of this. The dragons would be trustworthy up until Skald takes control of them. But the order? Tell me more. Oh, they're called the Breath of Sarabina, or something like that nature. They are a monastic order. They practice hand-to-hand combat and the like for their lives. We trade goods with them over in the mall from time to time. They're out there as far as sanity is concerned, but might be a good lot to go to bed with. They serve the silver dragon named Sarabina, so their loyalties might go to her when the time comes, but perhaps they would be a good lot to involve. But it's risky to say the least. All right, Olan. I'll leave that negotiation to you. Reach out to them and see what you think. Use your best judgment in the situation. Assuming that the woman claiming to be the Skald was the actual Skald and not some wannabe. She was strong enough to control our smiths, so she's at least a keeper strong enough to do that. Ethan had decided. All right. But you know what they say? To control the mind of a dwarf is like to control the mind of a dragon. We are one and the same, tapping a knowing finger to his temple. Olan said it with a smile. I'll reach out to this breath of Sarabina and see how the wind shapes. How old is this order anyway? From what I know, they were formed during the calm, and that dragon Sarabina was the daughter of Sykes, the dragon that ate the head of the Skald during the Battle of Edius. Perhaps their motivations are in line with ours. It's worth asking anyway. Excellent. Please let me know as soon as you talk to him. I'll be remaining in Malatin while Ethan heads to Karos to meet with the council. And Karish will be traveling to Gildstein to meet with the members of our order to ensure that they are ready to deal with this threat of life. May Hallis preserve us. Morsh stated that with a finality to the whole conversation. And travelers, that is where we'll leave things this episode. Thank you for traveling with me. Lore Corner. Addia the Green. Oh, Addia, how beautiful you were. 'Tis a shame that sadness took you. They call you Addia of the Green, whereas I see you of the blue. Why couldn't you survive the losses, my love? Why couldn't you see all the beauty that you helped create? Why did you have to weep over the loss, the war? Addia the Blue, I am lost without you. Celebrimbar Varfarian's lament for his love, Addia. Addia the Green was born amongst the first elvish people of Feduria, and was one that was grieved most severe by the Dragon and Elf War. Though she did not die during the war, you might as well say that the war killed her. Her heart was broken by the destruction that the war had caused. She was a creator and nurturer, spending most of her days in the forest with creatures that she helped name. It is said that the blonde hair had a bit of green hue to it that paired well with her deep forest green eyes. She was a person of few words. Many called her meek and timid. However, they did not see her that way when she was protecting the Green. She was one of the first beings that took to establishing such deep roots with the animals of the forest that she could change her form to nearly any beast that she wished. It was said that the ability to shape change was taught to her by one of the dragons long before the war. Oftentimes, she would forget to completely change back from her time running with the animal of the forest. So you would see her with hair, ears, a foxtail, or some similar features. When asked why she preferred the company of animals to that of her kin, her response was typically, "They are honest. We lie. We lie to ourselves, and we lie to each other. They do not." Addia was sought after by many, but her heart belonged to the wood and the wild. There was a pureness to her that could not be tamed. The plants, the trees, the flowers, the birds, and the beasts, that's what held her heart. She loved them as a mother loves a child. The closest suitor was this Celebrimbar Varfarian that would write poetry about her and read it aloud in the forest, hoping that she would hear it. If anyone won her heart, it was Celebrimbar. It is said that they shared a child, but that is just a rumor. The beginning of the end for Addia was the Dragon and Elf War. Truth be told, she agreed with the dragons in the war. However, her kin had to learn the lesson the hard way. She spent most of her time in the war trying to salvage and save as much wildlife as possible. It was suspected that, if not for her, there would have been many creatures of Calidria that would have been no more. Addia was vocal about stopping the war, always in defense of the creation of the Great Worms, the plants and the animals that the elves had named. The war broke her heart. It was only after she sacrificed herself to prevent a death blow to inadvertently strike the last male unicorn that true discussions began about stopping the war. Her last words were, "I die for them now. When will the killing stop?" This sacrifice, in turn, removed the fog of war from the eyes of the elves that were her kin. Fordwin met with Elgus that very night to begin discussions that would eventually lead to the end of the war. Who knows if the elves would still exist this day if not been for a unicorn in the wrong place and Addia's sacrifice. Due to her love of forest creatures, Addia was raised to be a goddess of the green. The green in turn represented all plant life, animal life, and mystical currents that keep the natural order of things. It is said that she is the mother of druids, and many that follow her are indeed druids. Her sacrifice led to the end of the Dragon and Elf War, and all because her desire to keep alive a line of creatures, a unicorn. Addia is a symbol of nurturing care, animal husbandry, and caretaking of the forest and nature. To follow her path is one that will reward you with many of the most beautiful sights that Calidria can offer. The splendor of nature is at the feet of her followers. Her color is green, if there were any doubt. Her symbol is an oak leaf with a unicorn horn resting at its center. The entrance of the temples that honor her are always oak wood, as it is a symbol of protection and strong defense, with ivy growing around it. Always present at the keystone area of the door is a carved horn to symbolize the unicorn that she saved. Oaths of her order: protect always the green. Keep the ways of the green. Watch and learn from the creatures that call the green home. Defend the sacred nature. Enjoy the splendor that nature has to offer. Smell the flowers, for they will not lie to you. Be as honest as the creatures we observe. Well, travelers, I have to say thank you once again for journeying with me. I will have a special recording for the regulars and those in the seats of honor this month, with the first recording of special lore. I will be covering the creation myth of the Dragon Elf War in this month's special recording, so look out for that content over on Patreon. With that said, I want to thank you for listening. If you wish to support the podcast, a rating where you find the podcast would mean a lot, or a simple thumbs up, a simple share, tell a friend. And if you want to support the podcast a bit more and get the recipes of Caligria in your kitchen, as well as this additional lore content, please support me over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/thegoldenimp. And signing up will also give you access to the Discord server. I hope to build a great community over there, but I can only do that with you. So won't you join us and join the conversation? And if you want to follow me outside the podcast space, you can find me on Blue Sky at Impish Skald. I am Joe Craig, the Impish Skald. Thank you for listening, and remember, you've been scalded.